He hadn't spoken a single word for 12 days. Not to the doctors, not to his own people, not even to the machines that once obeyed his every command. The chamber where General Kyle Varen sat was so still it felt sacred. Light from the orbiting sun filtered through glass walls, casting fractured halos across his silver skin. His eyes, once sharp enough to command fleets, now stared at nothing, just the empty curve of the universe outside. The monitors hummed softly, lines steady, readings normal. Yet every expert on the station said the same thing. Something in him had gone dark. Across the observation deck, human officers whispered in unease. The alien general had survived plasma storms, assassinations, and 3 decades of interplanetary war. But now, he sat motionless in silence. The fragile peace treaty signed only weeks ago trembled with each passing day of his stillness. One word from him could assure peace. One refusal could destroy it. Commander Rhys Talvin stood by the reinforced glass, jaw tight. "We can't hold this quiet much longer," he muttered. "If he doesn't speak by sunrise, the Otharian Council will assume we broke him." Dr. Nira Sol, the lead xenobiologist, didn't look up from her tablet. "His scans are perfect. Neural patterns clean, circulatory stable. Physically, he's fine." She hesitated before adding, "Emotionally, he's something else entirely." Behind them, the Otharian ambassador's reflection shimmered against the glass. Ambassador Soren Vell's voice carried the kind of precision that cut like ice. "You humans don't understand our ways," he said coldly. "Silence among our warriors is not weakness. It is defiance. It is grief. It is a warning." Rhys turned toward him. "Then tell me, what's he warning us about?" But the ambassador didn't answer. He only stared through the glass at Kale's motionless form, the faint glow of his scars pulsing with a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat buried beneath metal. No one knew what had happened on that last mission. The official report said his shuttle had been caught in a magnetic storm during peace transport. Others whispered darker stories that he'd seen something in that storm, something no mind was meant to survive. Whatever truth lingered behind those walls, Kale Varen had locked it inside himself. 12 days, no sound, no expression, just that empty stare into the endless dark. And yet, beneath all the tension, the station kept moving. Diplomats argued in sealed rooms. Technicians replaced power cells. The medical staff rotated through their shifts, careful not to linger too long near the silent alien. Everyone treated him like a bomb that might explode if touched. Everyone except one person, the new nurse, assigned for the midnight watch. She hadn't arrived yet, but her name, Ilara Wynn, was already whispered through the corridors like a quiet hope. Some said she'd volunteered. Others said she'd been punished with the assignment. No one knew for sure. What they did know was that tomorrow would mark the 13th day of the general's silence and the last sunrise before the Otharian fleet demanded answers. Commander Rhys looked once more through the glass. The faint hum of Kale's vitals filled the room like a heartbeat the universe had forgotten. "If he doesn't speak by dawn," he said under his breath, "we all know what happens next." Outside, the stars shifted slowly across the observation window. Kale's eyes followed them, unblinking. The faintest pulse of light ran down the old scars on his hands, as though remembering something unseen. And somewhere deep within that silence, a question waited, one no one had dared to ask yet. What does a warrior of 1,000 battles see when even victory feels like a wound? Ilara Wynn had walked hospital corridors all her life, but nothing felt like the silence outside Chamber 9. The air there carried weight a hush that pressed against her ribs, as if the entire station held its breath. Inside was the alien they all feared to disturb. Outside, the nurses exchanged nervous glances, whispering that no one lasted more than an hour near him. But Ilara wasn't like most of them. She had learned long ago that the worst pain rarely screamed. It simply stopped speaking. When the pressure door hissed open, cool, sterilized air brushed her face. The room smelled faintly metallic, with undertones of ozone and distant rain. General Karl Varin sat upright on the med platform, unmoving. Silver skin reflecting soft blue light. Eyes open, fixed on the stars. Machines blinked around him, quietly alive, as if afraid to interrupt. Ilara took one step forward, then another, each footstep echoing too loudly in the chamber. He didn't turn his head, didn't blink. It was like standing before a statue carved from war and regret. She spoke softly, her voice barely a ripple in the quiet. "General Varin, my name is Ilara. I'll be overseeing your care tonight." Her words floated, unanswered. She checked the readouts on her table. Normal neural flow, stable vitals, no sign of distress. Every reading said he was fine, but nothing about him looked fine. His hands rested palm up on his knees, faint lines of light tracing through them like veins of molten glass. Behind her, the small medical drone Unit 9 hovered into view, its lights blinking a soft amber. "Patient status unchanged," it chirped in a neutral tone. "Communication attempts 0 response. Recommend standard sedative protocol." Ilara shook her head. "No sedatives," she whispered. "If he's silent by choice, drugs won't fix it." The drone hesitated, lens rotating curiously. "You believe he can hear you?" Ilara glanced at Kale. "I think he hears everything." She moved closer, just enough to see her reflection, faintly mirrored in his metallic skin. Beneath the steady hum of the machines, there was another sound, the faintest rhythm, like breathing layered with static. For a moment, she thought it came from the equipment. But then she realized it followed her heartbeat. His scars pulsed gently in the same rhythm. Ilara froze. Coincidence, she told herself. Still, the small discovery sent a ripple of curiosity through her chest. She cleared her throat and tried again, this time speaking not as a nurse, but as a person. "I don't know what happened out there," she said quietly. "But sometimes silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's full of the things we can't say." His eyes flickered once, so faintly she might have imagined it. But Nin's sensor lights shifted in response. "Detected micromuscular movement," the drone announced softly. Ilara looked up. "You saw it too?" The drone hummed affirmative. "Possibility of voluntary reaction, 12%. For the rest of her shift, Ilara stayed in that quiet room. She adjusted monitors, cleaned instruments, and spoke in low tones about ordinary things. Earth rainstorms, ocean smells, the sound of children in city streets. He never replied. But every time she spoke, the faint glow beneath his skin seemed to answer in kind, a rhythm matching her own. When her shift ended, she lingered by the door, watching him still staring at the stars. "I'll be back tomorrow, General," she whispered. "Maybe you'll tell me what they mean to you." She turned to leave, and for the briefest instant, one of the monitors flickered a single pulse of light, synchronized to her final step. Outside, the corridor lights dimmed for night cycle. Ilara didn't tell anyone what she'd seen, but deep down, she knew she hadn't imagined it. Something inside the silent alien had stirred, and somehow it had moved with her. By the third night, the silence no longer frightened. Ellerite fascinated her. Each time she entered the chamber, she felt it waiting for her, as though the air itself recognized her steps. General Kyle Varine hadn't moved, not once. Yet something had changed in the way his stillness felt. It wasn't hollow anymore. It was listening. She began to notice tiny things, the way the light from his scars dimmed when she paused speaking, and brightened faintly when she began again. It couldn't be coincidence. No machine could mimic emotions so subtly. She tested it gently, humming a simple tune under her breath as she arranged fresh nutrient gels on the counter. The hum echoed softly against the curved glass walls, a fragile human sound in an alien world. And there it was, a flicker, faint but real, in the glowing veins that ran across Kale's arms. She stopped humming. The light faded. She started again, and the glow returned, pulsing in sync with her rhythm. "Nin," she whispered. "Run a visual frequency capture on those pulses." The little drone floated closer, its sensors clicking quietly. "Recording," it replied. "Frequency correspondence detected. 78% match to human vocal modulation." Elara exhaled slowly. He's responding to sound. She should have been thrilled, but instead, she felt a strange sadness rising in her chest. He wasn't responding to orders, to medical scanners, or to his own kind, only to a human voice, to something small and ordinary. Maybe that was the point. Maybe what he needed couldn't come from logic or science at all. She began talking to him more freely after that, about home, her mother's garden that smelled of rain, the way the ocean on Earth turned silver before sunrise. She even told him about her brother, who never came back from the asteroid Minas, a story she hadn't shared in years. Through it all, Kale didn't move, but his skin shimmered with subtle life, like light passing through deep water. Dr. Nira entered mid-shift, irritation sharp in her tone. "You're talking to him again, Nurse Wynne?" she said, tapping rapidly on her tablet. "He's not a therapy patient. He's a military artifact, under observation." Elara didn't look up. "Maybe that's the problem," she said quietly. "Everyone's treating him like a machine that stopped working." Nira rolled her eyes. "We've run every test. His silence isn't biological, it's behavioral. If he wants to play statue, let him." She turned to leave, then paused. "But if you think your bedtime stories will make him talk, you're wasting your breath." The door sealed behind her, leaving Elara alone again in the hum of machines. She sat down beside the bed, ignoring protocol, and whispered, "If they only see you as a weapon, maybe that's why you're hiding." Her voice trembled slightly. "But I see something else. Someone who's tired of fighting." The glow beneath his skin flickered once more, not rhythmic this time, but sharp, like the flutter of a heartbeat under strain. Nin's lens adjusted automatically. "Unstable light pattern," it murmured. "Possible emotional resonance." Elara smiled faintly. "Good," she said. "It means you're still in there." Outside the observation window, the stars drifted across the void, reflections of quiet motion. Somewhere deep within that silence, she felt it again, the smallest pulse that answered her heartbeat. And though he hadn't spoken a word, Kale Varine was no longer silent. He was trying to remember how to be heard. By the 12th night, the atmosphere on the station had turned sharp enough to cut. Every corridor whispered with unease. Every officer carried the same question on their faces: would the alien general ever speak again? The peace treaty hung on that answer, and the diplomats were running out of patience. When Elara stepped off the lift for her shift, She saw Commander Reese arguing in low, tense tones with the Otharian ambassador. Their reflections blurred against the viewport, one human, one alien, both desperate for control. Ambassador Soren Vel's voice was measured but cold. Our council believes you've imprisoned him to weaken his mind. If he does not speak by the 13th sunrise, the Otharian fleet will withdraw from orbit. Reese's jaw tightened. You mean attack? The ambassador didn't deny it. A war born from silence, he said softly, would be a fitting irony. Elara froze just outside the room, listening as her heart thudded. War, over one man's silence. She wanted to shout that Kale wasn't refusing out of defiance, he was grieving. But she was a nurse, not a diplomat. Her voice carried no weight in these rooms. Still, when Reese turned and caught her standing there, he didn't scold her. He just looked tired. He's all yours again tonight, he said quietly. Make it count. Inside the medical chamber, the lights were dimmer than usual, shadows stretching long and thin across the floor. Kale remained as before, motionless, expression unreadable. Elara set her tray of equipment down, her hands trembling slightly. She spoke without thinking. They're giving you until morning, she said. And if you don't say something, anything people will die again. Her voice cracked on the last word. She swallowed hard, forcing calm back into it. I don't know if you can hear me, but I think you can. I think you've been hearing me all along. The faint shimmer beneath his skin responded slow, uncertain, as if waking from a dream. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. Whatever happened to you out there, you're not alone anymore. You don't have to carry it by yourself. Behind her, Nin hovered in silence, recording every sound. The hum of the machine seemed louder tonight, almost impatient. Elara turned toward the window, staring out at the black expanse beyond. Do you ever look out there, she whispered, and wonder if peace is even real, or if it's just another kind of waiting? No answer came. Only the soft pulse of his scars, flickering faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat again. She exhaled shakily. They'll come for you at dawn, she said. They'll try to force you to speak, even if it breaks you. But I'm not going anywhere. If you need to stay silent, I'll stay with you in it. Her words hung in the air, fragile but defiant. Then, without warning, the chamber lights brightened. Commander Reese's voice crackled through the comms. Nurse Wynne, report immediately to control. They're initiating neural scan protocol. Elara's breath caught. No, she said under her breath. That'll kill him. She looked back at Kale, his eyes still fixed ahead. For a long moment, she hesitated, then pulled the comm line from her collar and whispered, They think silence means surrender, but maybe silence is your way of fighting back. She moved closer, standing beside him. If no one will listen to your silence, then I will. All night, if I have to. Outside the window, the stars seemed to shift, a slow ripple of light across the void. The drone sensors blinked softly, recording the faint rise in Kale's pulse. Elara didn't know what would happen when morning came, but something inside her refused to walk away. She looked at his still hands, then at her own. Then I'll talk until you answer me, she whispered. And somewhere deep within that unbroken quiet, a pulse of silver light flickered once, like the beginning of an answer. The 13th sunrise arrived painted in the cold light of blue dawn. Through the station's glass canopy, the sun shimmered like an ember caught in isolate, distant, unfeeling. Elara hadn't slept. She'd spent the entire night in the chamber with Kale. her voice hoarse from talking to someone who never spoke back. Her words had run out hours ago, but her presence had not. Sometimes, she thought that mattered more. At 0600, the door slid open with a hiss. Dr. Naira entered, flanked by 2 technicians carrying the neural interface cradle. "Step aside, Nurse Wynne," she ordered briskly. "We've received command authorization. The scan begins now." Ilara's pulse jumped. "You can't," she said quickly. "He's not stable enough. The neural bridge could overload his synaptic grid." Nira gave her a look of sharp impatience. "He's been stable for 12 days. Precisely the problem. If he refuses to talk, we'll make his mind do it for him." The technicians moved toward the platform, metallic clamps unfolding like pale fingers. Kale didn't flinch. He didn't resist. He just watched them, still as stone, the faint light beneath his skin pulsing slow and steady. Ilara stepped between them. "Stop," she said firmly. "If you hurt him, you'll end this treaty before it even begins." Naira's voice hardened. "Move aside, nurse, or you'll be relieved." Ilara's heart pounded. For a moment, no one breathed. Then, softly, she said, "If he dies here, what will you tell them? That a war hero broke because we couldn't listen?" The room went silent. Even the machines seemed to pause. Nira exhaled sharply, gestured to the others. "Fine, 10 minutes, then we proceed." She turned and left, leaving Ilara alone with the alien who could decide the fate of 2 worlds. Ilara turned back to Kale. His eyes followed her, now barely, but enough to make her chest tighten. She sat down beside him, ignoring every rule of protocol. Her voice trembled. "They think your silence means defiance," she whispered, "but I think it's grief." She glanced at his hands, scarred and motionless. And no one should have to grieve alone. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand gently over his. His skin was colder than she expected, smooth and metallic beneath her palm. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, faintly, warmth began to spread, slow at first, then stronger, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The glow of his scars brightened until the light filled the room, silver radiance spilling across the walls. The air vibrated with a low hum, soft but powerful, like a deep chord resonating from within his chest. Ilara gasped, but didn't pull away. "Kale," she whispered, "can you hear me?" His fingers twitched beneath hers. The hum rose, fractured, then turned into something unmistakable, a voice, raw and trembling, breaking free after 12 long days of silence. He hesitated, his first word heavy with rusted pain. "Is the child alive?" Ilara froze, unable to speak. "The child," she echoed. His eyes turned to her for the first time, sharp and aching. "The one on the colony. I tried to reach her. The storm..." He broke off, voice shattering under the weight of memory. The glow from his scars dimmed to a weak flicker. Ilara squeezed his hand gently. "You saved as many as you could," she said. "No one blames you." He shook his head faintly. "I blame myself." His voice sounded like cracked stone. "They told me the human child was gone, but I saw her light in the storm. I don't know if it was real." Ilara's eyes stung. "Maybe she's still out there," she whispered. "Maybe that's why you're still here." For a moment, their hands stayed joined, the line between human and alien blurring in the soft light. But then Nin's sensors flared red, breaking the stillness. "Warning," the drone intoned. "Unstable energy surge detected in containment grid." Kale's head turned sharply toward the ceiling as alarms erupted across the station. The glass walls trembled, lights flashing crimson. Commander Reese's voice echoed through the comms, tense and clipped. Power conduits, overloading solar flare impact imminent. All hands to emergency stations. Ilara looked at Kale. He was already standing, the strength back in his frame, the glow beneath his skin burning bright again. "The shields will fail," he said, voice now steady, alive. "If they collapse, this station will fall." He released her hand and stepped off the platform, every movement purposeful. For 12 days, he had been silent now. Every step was a vow reborn. Ilara's pulse thundered as she followed him into the corridor, the alarms howling around them. Whatever broke him had been waiting for this moment to heal. And as the lights flickered red and silver together, she knew the silence had finally spoken. The alarm screamed through the corridors like wounded metal. Ilara ran after Kale as emergency shutters sealed one by one, the red glow painting every wall with urgency. The entire station trembled under the force of the solar flare, each vibration echoing like a heartbeat gone wild. Technicians shouted over the intercom, their voices drowned by the hum of failing shields. In the chaos, Kale moved with quiet precision, not panicked, not hesitant, just focused, as though his body remembered a duty his mind had tried to forget. Commander Reese's voice crackled through the overhead speakers. "Containment grid collapsing on Deck 7. We've lost the auxiliary reactor." The words struck like ice. Deck 7, the medical bay, the one Kale had just left. Ilara's breath caught. "If the core destabilizes, the radiation will breach the entire lower ring," she shouted. Kale glanced back at her, eyes burning silver. "Then we stop it." They reached the reactor access tunnel, heat radiating through the floor panels. Sparks danced across the walls. Nin hovered nervously beside them, its voice flickering. "Warning, radiation levels rising. Entry not recommended." Kale ignored it. He tore open a maintenance hatch with his bare hands, the metal shrieking under his grip. "The shielding conduits," he said, voice deep and controlled. "They've been rerouted in efficient pattern. I can realign them manually." Ilara frowned, blinking through the haze of heat. "You'll burn yourself alive." He turned toward her, a faint flicker of a smile ghosting across his lips. "I've endured worse flames." He stepped inside, his luminous scars glowing brighter as if his body were absorbing the radiation itself. For the first time, she saw what those marks truly were, channels of living energy, a part of his species' defense against cosmic storms. As Kale worked, Ilara watched through the crack of the open door. His movements were steady, methodical, and somehow sorrowful. Between the rhythmic clangs of his tools, he spoke, voice low but clear. "The child I saw on the colony, she wasn't just any human. She carried a signal device I'd given her. She could activate it if she reached safety. When the storm took her ship, the signal vanished. I stayed silent because..." He paused, tightening a conduit bolt with trembling hands. "Because if I spoke, I'd have to admit she was gone." Ilara felt tears rise, hot against the acrid air. "You thought silence would protect you," she said softly, "but it only made the loss louder." Kale didn't answer, but his shoulders lifted as if her words had reached him deeper than he'd expected. He pressed one final sequence into the console. The lights above them steadied, the roar of alarms dimmed to a heartbeat of silence. Then Nin's sensors chimed green. "Shield stability restored," it announced. The silence that followed wasn't empty this time. It was peaceful. Kale stepped out, exhausted but upright, the light fading slowly from his skin. He met Alara's gaze, and not as a soldier or alien, but as someone fragile and real. "You said maybe she's still out there," he said. "I'd like to believe that again." Alara managed a small smile. "Then believe it," she whispered. "Because sometimes hope is the only voice that keeps us alive." A faint shimmer crossed his eyes, not just reflection, but something like gratitude. Around them, the station began to hum again, alive and breathing. Somewhere beyond the viewport, the sun flared and settled, its violent light replaced by calm gold. For the first time since his silence began, Kale Varin exhaled, and the sound was not of pain, but release. The emergency sirens faded into a low hum as power returned across the decks. The air still shimmered with the taste of heat and ionized dust. Alara's legs trembled, but she forced herself to keep moving. Kale was ahead of her, his tall frame half silhouetted by the glow of the reactor's recovery field. Every few seconds, sparks rained from overhead conduits, harmless now, but still bright enough to light the streaks of silver across his skin. He reached the manual control column and began stabilizing the last of the systems. Alara watched him, realizing she had never seen someone move with such quiet strength. There was no arrogance in his actions, no trace of command-only calm focus. She approached carefully. "You should rest," she said. "You've absorbed enough radiation for 3 lifetimes." Kale gave a faint, humorless chuckle. "If I rest now, your shields fail again within the hour. I would rather stand." Nin hovered beside them, projecting a small holographic diagnostic readout. Core temperature dropping. Structural integrity at 92%. Stability approaching optimal. Relief washed over Alara, but it was short-lived. The floor beneath her gave a sudden jolt. A loose panel burst open, throwing a wave of heat and steam. She stumbled back, the metal grating giving way under her boots. Kale moved faster than thought. His arm shot forward, catching her wrist before she fell into the open conduit. The light from his scars flared as their skin Methuman warmth against alien fire. For a breathless second, the world held still. The sound of machinery faded, and all Alara could hear was the rhythm of 2 hearts trying to stay alive. "Don't let go," she whispered, voice shaking. His grip tightened. "Never again," he said quietly. He pulled her up, his strength steady, anchoring her back onto solid ground. They stood there in the trembling silence, faces close, breath mingling in the dim light. Alara looked into his eyes, at the cold, distant stare she'd first seen. But something softer, more human. "You could have saved yourself," she said. "Why risk it?" Kale's expression shifted the faintest smile, touched by sorrow. "Because once, someone reached for me when I thought I was lost. I didn't answer then. I won't make that mistake twice." She swallowed, unable to find words. For the first time, she saw him not as an alien general, but as a man trying to live again. Around them, the light steadied, and the emergency sirens finally died away. Kale looked down at their joined hands, then back at her. "You reminded me how to live," he murmured, his voice low and raw. Outside the viewport, the sun broke fully across the black expanse, its golden light spilling into the chamber. The storm was gone. The silence between them no longer felt heavy. It was full, alive, and understood. 2 days after the flare, the orbital station floated in rare stillness, bathed in warm, amber light. The engineers called it a miracle that the reactor had survived. The diplomats called it a success of cooperation. But Alara knew better. It wasn't a miracle or a policy that saved them. It was a single moment of trust between two people who shouldn't have understood each other at all. The med bay had returned to its usual quiet hum. Patients rested. Monitors beeped gently in rhythm. Alara moved between recovery pods with practiced calm, but her eyes drifted now and then toward the viewing deck where Kale stood. He no longer sat motionless behind glass. He walked the corridors freely, his posture lighter, his voice, though rough and halting, returning word by word. The silence that once separated him from the world had become a kind of peace. When he entered the ward that evening, even the drone-in paused mid-flight, projecting a small beam of welcome light. Kyle inclined his head in quiet acknowledgement. "You keep your machines well," he said, his accent strange but steady. Alara smiled. "They listen better than most of my patients." He looked at her for a long moment before saying softly, "The Council has renewed the treaty. They've asked me to remain here, as a liaison between our worlds." She nodded, unsurprised. "And what do you want?" Kale's gaze turned toward the stars beyond the window. "For once," he said, "I want to speak only when it matters." He looked back at her, the faintest light running through his scars. "You showed me that silence can heal, not wound." Alara felt warmth rise behind her eyes. "And you showed me that sometimes the hardest language is understanding." A comfortable stillness settled between them, not the heavy quiet of grief, but the soft hush of two souls breathing in the same rhythm. Nin drifted closer, projecting an image onto the floor beside them. Two handprints, one human, one Otharian, both outlined in faint gold light. Kale studied the image, then placed his palm over the projection. "Strange," he murmured. "Our worlds nearly destroyed each other, yet they fit." Alara laid her hand beside his. "Maybe peace isn't signed in treaties," she said. "Maybe it's in moments like this, small enough to miss, but strong enough to last." Outside, the sun lifted higher, scattering light across the station's glass panels. For the first time since her assignment began, Alara didn't feel like a nurse standing between species. She felt like part of something finally beginning. As they stood there, the stars beyond glowed pale against the dawn. The narrator's voice soft, reflective might have said. In a universe where silence once meant distance, maybe it was never emptiness after all. Maybe it was only the space we needed to hear each other. Kale turned toward her, eyes catching the golden light. "Thank you," he said simply. Alara smiled. "You already did." The drone dimmed its lights, hovering quietly. Around them, the station breathed again, alive and at peace. And beyond the observation glass, the first rays of a new day spilled across the void two worlds, rising into the same dawn.